Hello, everybody. This is Noah and John, and we are with UrbanDigs. And today we are talking Manhattan. And Johnny, we got a real good one going on today. We got Tania Friedland, we got Allison Chiaramonte, both from the Atelier group. And these guys are just monsters in the producers. They're ranked among the top 1% of Asians nationwide. They closed over 150 million in 2024, earning number 8 small team spot in New York City, more than 1.5 billion, John, with a B in career sales. And we got them.
It's a lot of zeros you have to keep track of with this team. So I'm glad you guys are here to join us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to get started here. And we got them for about 15, 20 minutes. And we're going to start right off. Tania, I think we're going to start with you. And we're going to ask you really quick just to tell us what is going on. People want to know what is happening in the state of the New York City real estate market today.
So it's a good question. And it's a hard question to answer. There is a lot of uncertainty in the market, but there's also a lot of certainty. And for buyers, there's super limited inventory right now. Things are moving and things are moving quickly. And if you see a property that you love, it probably won't last. So, our advice for buyers on the buy side is, move quickly and don't hesitate if you love something, because the tight supply trend is continuing on.
I think there's this misperception that the market is slow, and it's not slow. And it's not per se a gangbuster bidding war market in every subsection across the board, but that does exist in some markets. It's really a tale of quality and correct pricing driving the market. And when you have that, things are moving very quickly. And when you don't have that, things are lingering.
Yeah, I want to ask a quick question about that inventory. Are you guys expecting a lot of new listings to come on in the fall season? Because it feels like it's kind of tight out there. And I'm just wondering if sellers are hesitating or pausing, or is it just early in the season?
It's still a little early in the season to know. And especially with the upcoming mayoral election, there's also, as I mentioned, uncertainty. Some people are listing and some people are kind of in this wait and see mode as they want to see what the results are of the election before making any decisions.
I also think there's a lot of shadow inventory in certain subsections of the market right now, in that there's a lot more happening off market. And I think there are a lot of people, especially these first few weeks of prime fall, where people are kind of seeing what happens. They see a listing that's sort of similar to theirs go on the market, and they say, let's give it a few weeks, show it off market, and we'll see what happens with property A and B, and then we'll make a decision about whether it makes sense to go live.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that we've been talking about. We talked about it on our last Monday macro show, and that's the idea that, when you look at the rate of supply coming on, this year has just been one of the slowest years over the last 5 years. And it's beginning a little bit of a challenge, but we had some pushback. And some people say, well, there's a lot more off-market listings. Some of those private listings are not necessarily getting shown in the stats. And on the other side, it was, the idea was that with mortgage rates finally starting to get down a little bit, that the sub-luxury sector, under 2 million kind of thing, you get some of those buyers coming back, but they don't necessarily have anything to choose from. And then the third option there was, well, it's early. So I'm curious, when you think about the challenges out there that are getting deals done, is it a supply side, demand side? What sort of challenges are you seeing out there?
There's definitely a supply side issue, in the sense that good inventory, and obviously what good inventory is changes in each market and each sort of sub-market, but there is a dearth of supply, I think, across the board. And that, while there is perhaps less activity, there is robust activity for the things good in certain sections of the market. So it's kind of like a tale of two cities a little bit. We find that in our own listings for buyers, there's some people who have a property puts on the market, is priced decently and presented well, and it lingers. And then there are other things that we are shocked by how many offers we get quickly. We're shocked by bidding wars right off the bat on what seemed like a aggressive price sometimes even. So it's really all over the place. I think that inventory is going to remain tight for the rest of the year, at least in the numbers that are reported out there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
I kind of agree. Tanya, did you want to add something in there? Or
I was just going to say, I think also to your point about, with interest rates where they are and coming down, the big focus has been on carrying costs for buyers. And so buyers are sort of waiting in the sidelines, trying to see what's going to happen. Are rates going to drop? Are they kind of stagnant? And generally speaking, buyers are really focused on the overall cost of the property. So the combination of maintenance and the mortgage.
Yeah, and the rates are coming down right now. I feel like in terms of that angle, buyers have some elements going for them for the fall season. Could get activity up with that supply down. On the other side of the coin, are you seeing challenges out there, or are there specific areas of the market? I don't know, luxury, new development, or just maybe unrenovated co-ops or something. Is there any sector that you're seeing that's having more challenges out there, or in general with real estate transactions?
I think that unrenovated properties are a real problem on the market. I think that there is like a cognitive dissonance between, someone has a property, they know it needs renovation, they price it for the renovation, but they're only factoring in the cost of what they deem the renovation. So let's pretend it's a $2 million property and they think it needs a 500K renovation. They will price for that 500K and they're really not factoring in the carrying costs, the sort of blood, sweat, and tears, and then taking it even a step further on the higher end with more sort of premium estate properties. A lot of times they're not factoring in how high renovation costs are, but even more so sort of the time value of those more luxury sector clients' money, and them saying, okay, especially in co-ops, it's 50% down. And then I'm going to have to spend this much longer renovating, and I'm going to have to carry it, and I'm going to have to dump this into a construction project that isn't as easily financeable. And people start thinking, well, I can put my money in the stock market, I can put it in bonds, and I can make a fair amount. And if you're if you're a really savvy investor, the trade-offs are steeper. And I think a lot of our clients who perhaps work in finance or other industries where they have access to other investment vehicles, they're thinking about that. And that means that the estate properties have to take an even bigger haircut to become appealing. And I don't think a lot of the sellers of those properties have processed that.
Yeah, they're just not ready to make that price capitulation.
Totally.
Yeah, what I find really interesting is what you mentioned, the cognitive dissonance between a seller looking at how much the market is going to value a renovation versus how the buyer looks at valuing renovation, because the buyer is the one that's got those opportunity costs and the time element and those blood, sweat, and tears. And hey, it may cost 500, but I'm bidding 700 under to deal with that, and there's that gap.
They're probably also carrying two properties.
Right.
Exactly. So,
and the rental market is hot, so it's even more expensive to rent while you're doing it.
I know. It's like in the
All
old
making
days,
sense now.
but in the old days, you could understand like, okay, there's some value here, but now you really got to want it because the stock market's at record highs. The rental market is going bonkers. It's just like, you really have to take a chunk of change that you're okay not having it not do anything for you for quite a while and setting it aside for renovations. That emotional cost is just much higher than where it was just a few years ago.
And people are busy. They, their jobs are demanding, their lives are demanding, their families are demanding. It's a lot to take on.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming, very complicated market. Hey, that's why you need kind of decent agents to know what they're doing. Tania, I want to ask you a quick question. If I could start with you, Tania, what is going on with the state of the co-op market? Specifically, I want to talk about the Upper East Side. I mean, you have thoughts on that market and how maybe it's different than other sectors?
Yeah. So, as Allie mentioned, it is still also a little bit of a tale of two cities. There is super limited inventory right now. And especially for properties that are in mint condition, we work with a ton of buyers and it's really challenging to find a mint 3,000 square foot property in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, or even 90s, prime Upper East Side location. And so a lot of these deals are happening off market.
Right.
Yeah, if we had,
Sorry, go ahead.
or anyone has big sort of Upper East Side co-ops, and it doesn't even need to be mint, but move in condition. Like it needs to be livable. I feel like every broker we talk to, and we do a large chunk of our business on the Upper East Side in this world, we're all looking for the same thing. And that first day those come on the market, you see us passing each other. And if we have it, we often even don't put it on the market because we already know who to call and who has the buyers, because there's been so few. And I think especially in Q1 and Q2 of this year on the Upper East Side, we saw some really high numbers marked for large co-ops, sort of in the $5 million and up range. That surprised a lot of brokers because people were just sick of waiting and they were willing to pay up for that. And we're also seeing in that market an increasing number of cash deals.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I would love to, if you don't mind, I'm always very curious about how the private listing side works. And especially in a market like the Upper East Side and that luxury co-op market where larger units are just at a premium. The supply just simply doesn't exist to where it needs to be. And I'm wondering how that works in the private listing markets. Is there just such pent up demand that sellers can almost set the price, or is there still sort of some negotiation sort of happening? Is there still some market forces at play there?
It's sort of both. I think buyers are savvy no matter what. And obviously, if a buyer's working with a great broker, they have a great sounding board and good advice coming their way. Obviously, everyone is looking at averages, price per square foot, the comps. However, nothing is a perfect apples to apples comparison. And you sort of have to triangulate to achieve proper pricing, both when you're, pricing something on the sell side or when you're working with a buyer and advising them on, how to make an offer on something, especially if it's off market. I think buyers are willing to pay a little bit of a premium if they've been looking for a long time and don't want to deal with the competition of the property going on the open market. But even off market, there's still some competition because as Ali said, there are so many buyers out there who are looking and they're working with, top brokers, and it's a small community. And we sort of all work together to share information we have to help each other get deals done.
I think with the off market, there's two sort of interesting things. I think that the off market, there are certain properties that have something special about them or check a lot of boxes that kind of make you think that maybe you can achieve beyond what the comps are saying. And I think that's what Tania was getting at. Like, you kind of know where it should be priced, but there's something about it that you feel when you walk in, whether it's, views from all corners, a pre-war that has a bright kitchen, which you wouldn't expect. There's some of those properties where there's an opportunity to be a little aggressive on the open market and see what happens and see if other people react to what we as brokers or the seller is seeing. And I also think that a lot of the off market is not even intentional. We had a bunch of properties in Q1 and Q2 and even over the summer where if timing had aligned, we would have gladly hit the open market. But we had someone who was about to give birth and we knew that access to the apartment was going to be limited. So we didn't want to go live and then not be able to show for a few weeks. So we started off market there sort of out of a necessity. We had someone who had a very long construction project ahead of them, but thought that they would love to just know that it was in contract. And so we started ahead with the caveat that this was not going to close for a long time, but could we find someone who could wait? Someone else had a personal situation. They could show for a while and then they couldn't show. And so sometimes these off-market properties and deals are not straightforward and there's a twist or a turn, but because inventory is limited, also it works well.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we don't really go into the actual stories of what's going on there. I mean, people are either living there or they're dealing with some kind of situation, and we just assume really that they're just trying to game the system with these off markets and these privates lately.
Sometimes the off market seller is not a desperate or overly motivated seller. Otherwise, they would go on the open.
Right.
So they have to make an offer kind of thing. Yeah. Well,
also kind of, I always look at off markets as like, let's just test how people feel about a certain price without kind of penalizing me. I don't want to miss those first couple of weeks on the public market, I guess you call it.
And there's definitely some of that for sure. And, as I was saying before, sometimes you do get lucky with someone, identifying a buyer for an off-market property where they have buyer's fatigue and they're ready to go.
Yeah, I bet you that happens a lot. I mean, the seller fatigue and buyer fatigue. People don't think about that kind of stuff. Seller fatigue, I think there's a lot of value out there right now, by the way, some seller fatigue that has not successfully closed on the market. But I want to ask you guys quickly, we're getting a little on here. New development. I imagine you do some exposure with buyers, new development. Could you just paint the picture of maybe the environment of the new dev market right now?
Absolutely. So new dev, it really is building and developer specific. Some developers are giving, negotiating on price and giving concessions. Some are not giving anything. Some are firm on price and giving some, closing cost concessions. So it's really dependent on what the property is, how well it's selling, where they are in the sales process, and you know, and
Yeah.
and, and property specific.
And,
Sure.
and
Allison?
specifically uptown, just like we can't find that many sort of co-ops of a certain size in certain locations. If you have a condo there, people are willing to pay a lot of money, and then certain key sort of marquee developers, they don't have to negotiate.
Right.
I'd like to ask you both something, and it came up when we were talking about private listings, and it's the idea that when you start digging into some of the stories of the sellers, there are reasons for off markets, and one of them is life issues, and maybe you're having a baby, or you're doing something in which it's not feasible to, you got a tough job, or you just can't really show it all the time. And I want to talk about that view, that sort of that work-life view on the agent side. What is it like being a top agent, trying to grow a business, raising a family? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this business from all angles. And I'm curious how you guys make it work.
Do we?
That's a deep question.
Yeah, there you go.
Depends who you ask.
Well, let's ask you, Allison. Let's start there.
I think I am not the most balanced. I think I struggle with this. It's like a personal struggle. But today's a new day, and I'm going to try to be very positive about it.
Well, thank you for the honesty. I just want to say that at first and sharing that. Continue, please.
I mean, back to school and back to real estate sort of coincide, and that's a special combination of September that I think a lot of people are feeling, whether it's whatever you do. I think that every client is your most important client for a specific period of time while their deal is like sort of in that. There's a period of time with every deal where you really need to be really responding to certain clients. And I think understanding when those clients are in that moment of their deal and making sure that you're there for them then is key. But then also having the wherewithal to realize what is not a mission critical, deal critical call, email, question is important. And I think that also kind of thinking about where you are in your career, where you are in your family life is really important. I think if you're a new agent, it might be different than someone who has a few years under their belt, and totally different than someone who has 10 years under their belt.
Right. Tania, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as Ali said, I'm also not the best at this. And I think earlier in my career, it was, work always came first, and every call was the most important call, and every client was the most important client in that moment. But, our clients are always going to think that they are the most important thing in that moment. And sometimes you have to put the phone down and give yourself 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's good to just honestly get in the practice of doing it. You're sitting at dinner with a friend, a spouse, maybe you're by yourself, but you just turn the phone off for, 15 minutes. And then the next time you try a little bit longer, and you sort of teach yourself how to give yourself that balance and the boundaries of learning how to, take
It's
time
hard.
it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard,
I also-
especially yeah. Go ahead.
I think that's why you're see teams too. We're not
Teams are great for that. And I was going to say, I feel like just, when you're sharks out there and it's a shark eat shark world, you're like, and if you don't want to be the delay, right? You don't want to be where the gap is starting. You want to make sure that if it's my turn to say something, I got to get back in 2 seconds. Otherwise, something bad's going to happen. I don't know what. I think it's a New York thing. I don't know.
Yeah, but you have to remember, this is not heart surgery. And while this is all really important, we're not saving lives here.
Sometimes you got to resuscitate that $10 million
Right.
deal. It feels very surgical.
Get the paddles out. That's right.
Most This can wait 10 minutes.
I know, but it's so hard because it's rattling around in your brain for those 10 minutes. You know, you're physically off your phone, but you're thinking about it. You're like, all right, I got an answer.
It
Hold
is.
on. It's tough.
But you don't get you can't turn back the clock, and you don't get your life back. And there are important moments in your life that sort of pass by, and it's so important to be in the moment and appreciate them, and
Set your boundaries.
enjoy your loved ones.
I think a lot of it
it-
is also mental boundaries more even so than time boundaries. I think that's the hardest part. Like,
Yeah,
to your
it's
point,
gonna be okay.
You can put the phone in the other room, but even if the phone's in the other room, if it's still rattling around in there, it doesn't.
Yeah, because then you start itching. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Here,
I need my phone. Where's my? I'm gonna go call my other phone dealer over here. It's funny stuff. All right, guys, I got one more question. One more question. Thank you for opening up about that, though. I appreciate it. We don't talk about family work balance a lot on this show, and I think we could dedicate a whole show to that at some point. But
No, as an
for this
all-female
question,
team, it comes up a lot with people.
hey,
Yeah.
there's a lot of females out there doing this job and dealing with this kind of thing, and they probably want to hear it and talk about this kind of stuff. So that's great. I want to ask you guys a strategic production tip question. We like to end the show on this. I guess I could phrase it like this: if you ran into your younger self that was just starting in this business, and you wanted to give yourself a leg up, what would you tell yourself that you know now after getting to the top here, to expedite or get to the next level of success in a quicker way?
It takes time. It really takes time to build your career, but consistency is key. And don't try to do more than you can. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Just be consistent, do little by little, and over time, that's going to grow.
Okay, Allison.
I think it's one of having come from a corporate world, so I have a little bit of a different view on it than like Tania, who's been doing this forever. I think that this is a job that sort of is designed to make you feel insecure and where is the next deal coming from, and like feel that way. And kind of what separates, I think, even like the best agents is that you always feel that way a little bit, no matter what level you hit to. It's always about what's next, and that being worried about what's next and feeling that you haven't succeeded where you are is sort of like what keeps you going. It's not perhaps the most mentally healthy, but I do think that that's the advice. Like, if you think you're not doing well enough and you're worried about next year, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's actually like what's going to make sure you keep succeeding. I think that some people run into a stall in their career where they have maybe one or two big deals early on and they sort of are like, oh, I can do this. And they pause. And I think kind of no matter what else is going on, you have to lean in and go sort of while your momentum is there.
Yeah, strike while you're on
That's
target in this business.
It's a great point, and we hear it from so many of the top brokers. This idea of sort of staying hungry and like constantly just going through the motions, even though you've sort of reached a pinnacle and you guys are on that pinnacle, but you just keep going forward. You just keep going ahead, and it's just
the drive that
that's how
keeps you
yeah.
going.
Yeah, if you don't keep going, I mean, the deals you're doing now, the seeds for that deal were probably sown weeks, months, or years ago. So if you stop that train from moving, at some point that future growth is going to slow.
Right. And that's also a piece of advice for new agents is the planting of the seed to a deal closing is way longer
Yeah, you
than
got to sow
people
those
realize.
seeds and
Yeah.
nurture them.
The other thing that I just want to add that's a little bit, it's a piece of advice for new agents. It's a little off topic from what we were just discussing, but honesty is the most important thing in this business. There are so many agents who, I don't want to say they're dishonest, but they don't have the information. They want to sound smart. They make something up, and one, not being totally, accurate and honest is not good. It's so much better to say, I don't know, and I will find out for you. But the other thing is learning how to deliver, honest news is so important for our jobs. We give good news and bad news all day long, every day. And it's sort of like going to a doctor. Like if you went to a doctor who kind of sugar coated around a diagnosis to you and didn't really tell you what, it was going to look like and what the treatment was going to look like, you'd be really disappointed. But if you just sort of, confidently give the news, whatever that may be, there was a board turn down, we didn't win a bidding war, we got an offer that was lower than we expected, people appreciate it. They just want to hear it like it is.
They do. And can I say thank you for bringing that up, because that's a great point. It also ties into everything that you were talking about, Allie. And the idea is that I think a lot of brokers, especially when they're new, are so focused on, planting the seeds and go, deal that, to your point, Tanya, they'll just start like, not necessarily make stuff up, but they'll fudge it. They'll be like, yeah, I'll find out. I'll just give you a quick answer now.
They don't say, I don't know. They don't, they're like scared of that phrase. It's a great phrase.
It comes back to bite you.
It's not an intentional thing.
Right.
It's innate, but it's actually, you have to condition yourself to be able to say, I don't know.
I love this because, the three terms that I got on my wall over here that I look at every day for UrbanDigs is neutrality, independence, and market expertise. And that's what we've tried to position our company at, to provide, be neutral and be confident and be a market expert. Because, if you're buying or selling in this market out there, you need that market expert on your side. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
With you guys, like, you're staring at the numbers every day, but like there's sometimes there's sometimes like, no matter how much there's still so much in this industry that you don't know.
Yep.
You can't control, and you don't know where the market is going, where a property is going to sell, despite sort of, even if you're a top broker, or, like you guys are staring at the numbers every day, there's still that element that no matter how good you are, you don't know everything.
That's why I love this market, Allison, because it's so mysterious and complex, and you don't know what you don't know. When John started working with me, he was 2 years of buy-side deals. We did a whole bunch of them. And he was like, I can't believe this. It's been 2 years. We've done 50 deals. I'm still learning about this market every day.
Even today, I mean, look, we are in the matrix when it comes to the numbers.
We are plugged in,
the
Allison.
numbers are passing us by, but it's like, you can't keep track of everything all the time. It's just fire hose. Can't do it.
Yeah. And it's about to potentially change again with the macro environment that's kind of hitting our market. So we're going to see it's going to be a very interesting fall. But guys, thank you so much. This has been fun, interesting, a little personal at times. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Allison Chiaramonte, Tania Friedland, thank you so much from the ATelier team. John Walkup, I'm Noah Rosenblatt. This has been Talking Manhattan. Catch you guys next time.